ring if you're ready to care. Oh, let's talk power, let's talk speed. Hosted by the one and only We Too Deep. Turn it up loud, feel the power in your seat. This is Slapping Me, yes, Slapping Me.
What is up, everybody? It is your boy We Too Deep, and we are back with another episode of the Slappin' Meat Community Show. And we have a lot of WWE wrestling to break down, as well as some other conversation pieces that I want to bring up today. We'll talk about Clash of Champions. Or excuse me, it's Night of Champions. I don't know why I continue to call it Clash of Champions. Night of Champions. Or more respectfully in America, Afternoon of Champions. We'll talk about Great American Bash. I went this past weekend, and despite all of the critics saying don't watch the movie, I went and watched the brand new DCU movie, Supergirl. I'm going to give my thoughts on that. Excuse me. And then we're going to end the show with our question of the week. Pretty simple show, but it's going to be a long one because there's some things that I want to talk about with each of these PLEs that we got, as well as the conversation on Supergirl. But the first thing that I want to address is a little bit of housekeeping as it comes to the Friday shows and some other things, right? So this Friday, we're not going to... Last Friday, we didn't have a show. I just wasn't feeling it. I'm just going to be honest. This Friday, we won't have a show. And I'm going to go ahead and announce the Friday shows are going to kind of be on hold for at least a month or so as I get ready to start the new job that I got. Getting used to that schedule because I'm not exactly certain what my work schedule will be with that. There's just a lot of nothingness going on. It's hard to really come up with topics, and depending on my work schedule, because I think, like I said, once I get into my set schedule after I start and finish my training program, which is only about a month, once I get into a set schedule, then I think I'm running like a 1 p.m. to like 2 or like 9. Like I'm running like an 8-hour shift in the afternoon, night, like second shift, I think is where I'm going. And if that's the case, I might be able to do like a week or a daily show. And so I'm trying to see if I can get into that rhythm. And if that's the case, then we'll have different like themed days depending on what day it is, right? And so that will be interesting as well to see how that plays in. So with that being said, though, we'll have the Monday or Tuesday whenever I decide. That day's always up in the air. I'm recording on Monday tonight because I want to watch NXT live on Tuesday this week because it's a big show. There's a lot of championship matches, and I really don't want it spoiled for me. And that's probably how I'm going to continue to do this for the time being. But before we jump into all of this, I want to take, because we won't have a Friday show this week, I won't be able to do like a on the day or right on the weekend 4th of July tribute now. So I'm going to do it now. I know it's June 29th as I'm recording. This Saturday is July 4th. It is our 250th birthday as a country. And I just want to take a few minutes to just explain how important this is and where my fears are with where the country is headed. Because there's a lot of people who are going to say on Saturday, and here's to the next 250 years. Guys, I don't think we last another 250 years with the way we're progressing. You guys have heard me over the last year as I've started to talk a little bit more openly about sort of my views on the world, whether it's me last season on the podcast really going in on like the OnlyFans chat and how like we stuff and really making that like an enemy of the show, like, or whether it's some of the worldview stuff that I talk about. You guys know where I stand on this. I think we are headed towards a cultural crash. So I don't think there's a 250 years left as the United States of America, the way we were founded. The landmass will still be here, and it's probably going to be run by some other foreign entity or government or one world order type thing. Who knows how it ends up. I got some fears. I won't really lay all that out here. What I want to say, though, is there's still time. The window's still open, but there's not a lot left. Excuse me. I don't know about this call thing. I know it's been bothering me for a while, and it's probably annoying to you guys. I'm not 100% positive because I've never been diagnosed with it, but I think it's like a COPD type thing, or like I produce a lot of. This is kind of nasty, but I produce a lot of phlegm just naturally, and throat irritation, stuff like that. So humidity in the air, it's hot, and so when it's hot, it can irritate the lungs. So we're going to have to deal with this while we have it. I'm drinking water with it to try to keep everything like not dry and like the phlegm could not be super thick and stuff like that. But we're gonna have to just deal with that cough and work around it. Excuse me, back to my train of thought. But there's a window, and the window's closing, and we have time to fix this, but it's going to require a lot of cultural change that I don't think we want to actually do. That's just where I'm at. I think we're too comfortable as a society. We see in New York openly just straight up democratic socialism, communism. They taught you in high school about McCarthy and the Red Scare in the 50s. And it's funny because the writers of history are the winners of history. So the people who tell you history are the ones who win the battle. And so the ones who've been writing history have been trying to propagandize you for the longest time. McCarthy wasn't wrong. He was just early. Meaning, he called out communism in Hollywood and in government. If he was around today, he would be spot on and people would be wanting arrests. He was just early to the show. He wasn't wrong, though. They've been trying to infiltrate the places of authority and the places of influence for decades. With communist ideas. And so if we allow that to win, if we allow that to continue, and it's popular because if the promise is, I know you can't afford anything, so we're going to do free grocery stores that are government run. That's a thing that, like, that's popular if you can't afford groceries. But the problem with that is now your taxes go up, or they take your land, or they take your car because you can't own anything. So this is not your car. This person's in need of a car. We're gonna give it to them to use. Oh, this isn't just your house. This person's living on the street. You have an extra bedroom. They now live here. That's socialism. Or it's straight up, this is no longer a house, get out. This is now owned by the government, and we're going to use it as we wish. That's communism. That's socialism. That's what is coming to New York City. New York City's toast, guys. It's over. It's over for them. And if we're not careful, every other city in this country is going to be run just like it. And so, it is our 250th anniversary. America is the greatest experiment in self-governance. But here's the thing, right? The thing with America is that we claim to be a government of the people, for the people, by the people, which means that the people who have to keep it are we the people. And we the people are too soft, too comfortable with the government just taking care of everything. We're fine with the nanny state, with Big Brother watching us, and with government being, our sole caretakers and depending on government. And that's a scary place to be. So I wrote this as sort of a, I guess, monologue for what I would say on our 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence is the greatest breakup letter ever wrote. Taylor Swift wished she had the writing ability of what Thomas Jefferson said in this document. Basically, he said, King George, we're through. We no longer need you. You've been a burden to us. You tax us without representation. We're going away. I don't think people recognize what the Declaration of Independence actually was. It was a treasonous letter for them, for every single person who put their name on it 250 years ago. They were committing treason. And these weren't just poor farmers who were kind of fed up with everything. These were like the social elites. John Hancock was very wealthy. But they understood, these wealthy elite understood where they were. They were being taken advantage of and were being screwed by Europe. And if they didn't do something about it, it would be tyranny and continuous tyranny. And so they were willing, and they recognized it would either they acted now, or their children and their children's children would have to act in the future when it was too late. And so they signed their names on a document saying, England, we're done. We're seceding from you, committing treason against Britain, saying we're leaving, we're seceding from, right? And it led to the Revolutionary War. And but what's the difference between the American Revolution, which succeeded very well, and the French Revolution? Why didn't the French Revolution work anywhere near as well as the American Revolution? Because the French Revolution walked in and they were Nietzschean in ideology. So see, the American Revolution was done in the people who were the actors in the American Revolution, the soldiers, the people fighting this revolution. They had a worldview that for the most part was Christian. The center of life in the colonies was the church. In all 13 original colonies, excuse me, in order to run for government and to represent the colony, you had to have been a member of the Christian church. The only people who couldn't run, though, were preachers. Preachers were not allowed to run for government because they thought it was a conflict of interest with their ministry as a preacher to be in government affairs. That's what separation of church and state was. The separation of church and state wasn't so that the church couldn't have influence on government. It was actually the other way around. The idea of separation of church and state was to keep the church to keep the government out of the church's business, because that's what the Puritans left in the 1600s when the Church of England ran everything, and they were more Catholic, more Anglican, and they persecuted these Puritans who were who fled, and that's where they came to Plymouth Rock, right? And so the idea of separation of church and state was an idea that the church should be freed from government oversight. And so you couldn't have anyone in the government that was a preacher, but you were expected to be a religious, moral, but just be honest, a Christian human being to be in government. And so the French Revolution, the reason it failed was because they were Nietzschean, because they were nihilistic at its base, anti-authority anarchists. They went in, and not only did they behead the king and his family, they went in and all the churches were destroyed, and all the religious leaders were beheaded, and they were the complete opposite of the American Revolution. And so we have an option in this country today, while we still have a chance before a revolution, but I think a revolution may have to happen. And so the question will be, are we going to have a revolution? Because, guys, these younger people, if you think Donald Trump is saying some crazy things, you guys haven't been around young conservative men, like in their 20s, like young 20s, like 20, 21, 22. The Gen Alphas in the world who are tired of being told that being straight, white, male, and Christian makes them a toxic male, and that they're wrong, and they're privileged, and they have some societal guilt that they have just for existing. They're tired of it, right? And they're not allowing it to actually exist. They laugh at the notion that even exists, and they mock it. I don't think people recognize what is coming up on the far right. I'm not necessarily a fan of it. I'll just be honest. But I do acknowledge that it exists. And so a revolution is going to happen. And it's either going to be the French Revolution, anti-church, anti-authority, and if that's the way it goes, it's going to fail. Or it's going to be another American Revolution. And if that's the way we go, that's the only way we see another 250 years. So with that being said, I have a monologue. That's not the monologue, I'm sorry. But I wrote this out. 250 years ago, a bold idea was set to paper that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. And before people tune in and say, oh, but Thomas Jefferson's a hypocrite because he wrote this. He wrote this while owning slaves. No. Read the original. Try to find the original Declaration of Independence. You got to understand there was a Continental Congress that came around, and they had to make some compromises. Thomas Jefferson's original draft called for the abolition of slavery. But first off, you got to also understand this was a letter to the king, but he explicitly called out in the original draft of the Declaration of Independence, this breakup note, he said, "The king, you have this gross evil called slavery that you do here in the colonies, and it should end." Thomas Jefferson was very anti-slavery, pro-abolition of slavery. Yes, I understand he owned them. From my understanding, he was more of a gentler slave. I'm not going to sit here and try to justify his decision. What I do know is he really tried to press for the abolition of slavery. Thomas Jefferson really tried to fight for that. He really, I believed that all men were created equal and endowed with inalienable rights, and among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. See, America wasn't born perfect. And it has never been perfect. Our history is filled with extraordinary courage and painful failure. Breathtaking achievements and undeniable injustices. We have fought wars abroad and battles within our own borders. We have stumbled, we've disagreed, and at times we've lost sight of the ideas that give this nation life. Yet through every generation, Americans have returned to these founding principles. Not because we've always lived up to them, but because they are worth striving for. For 250 years, this nation has been a place where ordinary people have done extraordinary things. Farmers became founders, immigrants became citizens, inventors changed the world, soldiers defended freedom, pastors preached the truth, and created great awakenings. Parents built families, workers built communities, and together they built a nation unlike any the world has ever seen. The American story isn't one of perfection. It's one of perseverance. It's a story of a people who believe that freedom is worth defending, that self-government requires responsibility, and that our rights come not from kings, presidents, or governments, but from God himself. This week, this Saturday, July 4th, as we celebrate America's 250th birthday, we don't just simply honor our past. We should renew our commitment to the future. The next chapter of this nation will not be written by the history books. It should be and will be written by us. May we be a people who cherish liberty, pursue justice, love our neighbors, and never take granted the blessings we have inherited. So to America, happy 250th birthday. May God continue to bless these United States, and may we always strive to be a nation worthy of the ideas that first declared our independence a quarter of a millennia ago. And with that, now let's talk about wrestling. Let's talk some wrestling. This is the wrestling-filled episode for the next 30, 45 minutes. So let's talk about Night of Champions. So, couple things. Let's start with the least infuriating, the topic that's going to only take about 2 minutes. Io Sky won, which I predicted. I thought Io Sky would win. My prediction was she would go face Rio, right? Or Io would go, not Rio. That's her. She would go face Rhea. I kind of forgot Rhea was injured. Though I kind of feel the injury story is not as true as we want it to be. I kind of thought I read that she would be back by SummerSlam. I don't know. I haven't watched SmackDown in forever. But no, they announced the same night that she would be facing Liv again. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you. I find this kind of stupid. I find it kind of stupid that Io wins just to face the same opponent the next PLE. I understand what the defense is going to be. Well, she won the match. That's the story, that she now has a reason why she can challenge Liv, because she beat her before. I don't know. I don't buy that story. Maybe I don't know. I'm just over Liv Morgan. I'm kind of over Io Sky as well. I don't quite see the reasoning for this booking. I'm just going to be honest. But let's get to the two main things that happened. First off, Obafemi started the show against Jey Uso, and he won clean. Absolutely surprised me. Now, I didn't watch the show. I got updates as ESPN sent them. But he won clean. Absolutely surprised me. I didn't think Jimmy would win if Brock didn't show up. And so I guess this shouldn't have been that big of a surprise, because Oba's the babyface, kinda, in that the crowd loves him. He was going to win clean if Jimmy didn't, right? I kind of thought that it would end in DQ. That was really where I was headed with this. But then what happened tonight? I'm going to talk a little bit about Monday Night Raw, where Oba comes out and basically tells Adam Pearce, hey, there's going to be other opportunities to challenge for the title. I'm going to hold off on challenge and using what I won as King of the Ring. I'm not going to use that at SummerSlam. I want to finish this feud with Brock. And we get a match. Brock Lesnar, Obafemi, Hell in a Cell, which I caught it. Go back a couple weeks ago. I said that is how they were going to end the feud. That they needed. Remember when Brock won? And I said, don't overthink this. Oba wins the first one. Brock wins the second one. They were going to do some stip match, right? And so Oba throws out the challenge. If I beat you, you leave. That's exactly what happened. And Brock answers and says, I accept, but I got one condition for you. I'm gonna one-up you here, Oba. It's Hell in a Cell. I predicted everything in how this was booked. Right? I told you Hell in a Cell was going to happen. I told you it was going to happen. Because this is the only way that it made any sense. Like, this wasn't like, I'm not going to take 100% credit. This is very predictable because it's the only way it could have been booked. It's the only way it could have been booked. And so I like that. I like that a lot. Because the only other option, because I didn't see them going Oba Roman Reigns for SummerSlam. I definitely think they have that in their back pocket. They want that as their master match. I think that's going to be the big main event for WrestleMania 43. I think that's going to be it. Oba goes over Roman at WrestleMania. I think Roman's going to get Seth at SummerSlam. That's my prediction. Because the only other option was to have Oba go after the newly crowned Sami Zayn champion. No one wanted that. So then I was thinking, well, if they don't, they're finishing Brock Oba. That's been the plan. And so the original thought that I had, and I messaged Kara after Sami won, and I said, I have a way I think that we could do this, and Brock's going to come attack Sami and win the title and treat Sami like they treated Kofi. Do not think that's going to happen anymore. But that was my initial thought. I like what they did better, where Oba sort of said, I'm going to keep this in my back pocket. And let me finish with Brock first, then we can address the champion. But so excuse me. So we're at with Oba. Let's talk about Sami Zayn. Now I titled this WWE has gone full insane. This is the stupidest booking this. And I keep seeing people on the internet and paid reactors and all of this say, if you don't like Sami Zayn, you don't like wrestling. No, I don't like bad wrestling. I don't like a mid-card goofball who's run the same under... Guys, I need you to understand. I was a fan of Sami Zayn in 2014 when I got into wrestling. When I loved all the super babies. Dolph Ziggler, Daniel Bryan, Sami Zayn. These were my guys. Sami Zayn has been the same underdog character in multiple different facets for 15 years almost. He's run the same gimmick for 12 years. Nothing's changed. It's boring. No one actually wanted this. Some of the white knights in the WWE universe maybe thought they wanted it, but no one actually wants Sami Zayn as champion. No one actually wants Goofball McGee running the championship. No one wants this, bro. What's my question I ask after every event? That I say in order to book, especially in wrestling, what's the question? And we're going to get into like storytelling and the art of storytelling when I talk about Supergirl here in a few minutes. This kind of connects. There's 3 very important questions as you're building a story. So there's 3 parts, or well, realistically 3 parts of a story: the rising action, the climax, the falling action, and there's a 4th point called the resolution. So the rising action is the building of the story to get to the big moment, and then the falling action goes from the big moment to the end of the movie where the story should come full circle and resolve itself. And if you're in a universe type thing where you're trying to tell a story, you have a question you ask there in the resolution. And it's my main question because wrestling never ends, so you have to ask this question after every wrestling story. What comes next? The most important question to ask in the resolution of a story is what happens next. In a plot point, in the building of a story, when something big happens, the next question you should ask is what happens next. When you're about to do something, like if you're writing a story, right, and a big thing happened, or even if it's a small event in the story, an action happens from a character, the next thing you should think is, well, what is the outcome of that action on the rest of the story? Right? In the rising action, right, there's 3 questions that you're supposed to ask, right? Who is involved, what are they doing, and why are they doing it? Who's doing it, what are they doing, and why are they doing it? That's sort of the big 3 questions in the rising action, right? And so with this story, why is Sami Zayn fight? We know why Sami's fighting for the they've done a good job explaining to us who Sami is, what he wants, why he wants it. The question that, just like it was with Jey Uso when he won it, excuse me, what happens next? Where do we go from here now that Sami Zayn is champion that's going to get people watching the product? I don't see a way through this. I don't. Anything longer than like a month and Sami Zayn is already past his time as it. I think he loses it at SummerSlam. At least I hope. I don't know who he faces. Part of me feels like it's going to be Gunther or a darker Cody. I think this maybe is a Cody villain arc switch, but I don't know. I told you Gunther was only in the match to sort of add some credibility to it, but he wasn't going to take the pin, and therefore he was kind of useless in the match from what I've heard and saw of it. And so, like, what is the point of making Sami champion, right? This is a guy who, he's a flash in the pan nerd. Like, I don't understand what they see in him that is so important that they had to give him the title here. And I don't think it's as bad. Like there are some people who are upset with it and they're like, I'm not watching again. I'm not already watching, so it's not like I'm going to just dissect. I watch the PLEs. I'm going to watch SummerSlam and continue to cheer against Sami Zayn. I just don't understand why you would make this decision, if I'm just being completely honest. I don't see a genuine understanding or reasoning behind having Sami Zayn as your world champion. And so, overall, the event was kind of mid on a weekend full of wrestling shows. And so the next big thing that happened in WWE the next night after, Great American Bash. And now, not the greatest show as a whole. I thought it had its ups and its downs. We'll start with match 1. Now I'm trying to remember the match order. We started with Tony D and Naraku. And just like I said, I did in my preview last week, I really didn't care about this match. I still really didn't care about this match. Kind of figured Tony D would win. I didn't see them giving Naraku the belt this early. I think ultimately we're going to go to whatever the next PLE is and probably have like a 5-way match for the title. Jackson Drake, Naraku, Mason Rook, Tony D. I don't know who. Maybe there's a 5th guy involved. Possibly. That's just where I see this going. The match was okay, but it wasn't anything that I was really looking forward to. The next match was Zarya and Tatum Paxley, and this match was just from start to finish a banger. Zarya, I still stand on my opinion. If she didn't have the face paint, she would be a lot more easier to get behind from a look standpoint, because she's trying to be like intimidating and sexy at the same time, which is a good look, but the face paint sort of takes me out of it, right? So, like, I put on Twitter the other day, or Twitter while I was watching it. I put on X while I was watching it. Tatum Paxley gave this look into the camera, and I tweeted at when I saw it, if Tatum Paxley gave me that look in real life, like if I was standing across the ring from her and she would give me that look, I would melt, bro. She looked like dead ass into the camera and like melted the souls of everyone who like Tatum Paxley has that it factor. She's a fan favorite. What a match. Like this match over-delivered. Over-delivered. Match of the night, in my opinion. With a close second. And which we'll talk about. It's one of my themes of this show. So one of the things that I want to talk about real quick early on when talking about this is the first PLE on the CW. Which I have no issue with. Now, I think they could have done a better job explaining that it wasn't going to be live on the CW app, because I saw a lot of people asking, well, is it going to be on the CW app? Why is it not on the CW app? I looked for it. Where is it at? Where can I watch it? I don't think they're airing it on the CW app. And then I know that they announced that the CW sports stuff was going to be on ESPN Unlimited in the summer. And I told you when that was announced, it probably wouldn't drop until college football. That's probably what they meant by summer, was end of August. So it wasn't on there either. If you don't have like a paid cable plan, the CW is a local channel. Everyone gets it with an antenna. I'm just going to give you just buy an antenna, hook it to the back of your TV, and start turning channels until you see it show up. You can watch it live with an antenna without cable or anything like that, because the CW is run by local channels. So that's the first thing. I wish they would have done a better job explaining that. Secondly, I get it's on broadcast TV, and so there's TV time, there's, you need to run commercials. I don't have an issue with you running commercials. I have an issue with you running commercials on a PLE and where you're doing picture in picture like it's a weekly episode. It kind of took away from the moments of the show, running picture in picture, because it felt just like a normal Tuesday. I think that there could have been an agreement made that, hey, we'll give you guys a commercial break or after every match. We'll schedule enough time in between after every match to get you guys a commercial break. We don't mind doing that. I think you could do that, where the matches are commercial free. You do a commercial after the match, you come back, and it's the next match. I'd be 100% fine with that, because I understand it's broadcast TV. The network's going to want to make their, especially in prime time. That's prime real estate for commercials, and so I understand needing commercials. I just don't like picture in picture. I'm just going to be honest. It really took away from these PLE matches, because I tell you guys every time I rant about PIP is the second it goes to picture in picture, I go on my phone, and I'm not paying attention for that 2-3 minutes that we're under commercial, right? Because you're telling me that is not important when you go to commercial. And so I wish that there was a better way they did that system. With that being said, let's jump back into actual matches. I don't remember the full order, so we're just going to go over the remaining matches. Shiloh versus Tristan Angels was good. Really don't care about Tristan Angels, to be honest with you. Shiloh Hill, I think, is interesting. I've been thinking ever since he debuted that he would have been a very good dark character, like a Bray Wyatt character. And I think we got the beginnings of that with the little shenanigans under the ring that happened during this show. I think we're going to go much deeper in exploring the Shiloh Hill sort of psycho thriller type story. And I'm not a big fan of it. If it works well, I'm happy for him. But I always thought that's where the character was going to go. If they could pull it off, I think it could be good. But I don't have a lot of hope. I also think Shiloh Hill is a little bit stiff in the ring still. He moves a little bit weird to me. But I don't like to critique the in-ring stuff all that often, because I am not the one in the ring doing it, and he's a lot better than me at doing it. I don't think any stars were made in this match, though. And so it was kind of hard for me to understand why I was on a PLE. You could have put Vanity Project on this PLE, because they are bigger stars. I'm just going to be honest with you. You have Ariana Grace challenging for the Speed title against Ren Sinclair. Ren Sinclair wins with like 15 seconds left in this match. And when this happened, I thought to myself, oh no, this probably isn't good for Kendall. Because I didn't think both of them would retain, would have titles. And so, now I'm be honest with you, I don't quite understand the whole, Birthright should be, I don't understand why WWE NXT creates these big factions and then doesn't allow them to actually win anything. Birthright should be champions. This is a really good faction. You have enough members to have the tag team champions, the North American champion, the world champion, and one of the women's championships on your roster. Realistically, and I think maybe they're waiting for this, I think it's Dean Malenko's daughter just signed with the PC. She could be added to this, and she could go after one of the other women's championships and be added to Birthright. I don't understand why we have this faction. Lexus King and Charlie are essentially managers. What are we doing with this? It makes no sense to me what this faction is doing. They never win anything. It just feels like there's no commitment to that, to the faction. It feels like there was an idea pitched. They tried it, and the writers are trying to book it to fail so they can get rid of it. That's what it feels like to me. We then have Saquon Sugars and Deion Lennox. I thought it was okay. I liked Saquon's entrance music and like the theme of his music. It was last name Sugar, so ain't nothing sweeter than that. Kind of a corny catchphrase if you're gonna be portrayed as like a big bad gangster from DC and talk all this craziness like from the streets, and then your slogan is ain't nothing sweeter than that. It's a little bit whack to me. I'm just gonna be honest with you. But I get it with the theme of his name. Not much to really say. Saquon got the win, which I'm happy of. But then, like, you have this weird moment where, like, they jump him at the end. Like, you couldn't jump him during the match. Like, I'm sure Deion would have been okay with the DQ. Like, you're supposed to be bad guys. Excuse me. Why are you not jumping him during the match? It makes no sense to me. I'm just being honest. Did I hit every other match? I don't know. Let's talk about the main event. The main event. So, one of my themes that I had was the two best matches of the night were the women's North American and the women's championship match. Kendall Gray is, excuse me, now your champion, which I'm so happy for. I'm glad they put it on her. Lola's main roster ready. I think she's going to jump up there. And I think Kendall... So I saw this post the other, how long of a reign do you think Kendall's going to have? And someone said, I think she's going 300 days plus. And I actually agree with that. Kendall, I think, is going to be the center up. Now, there's also a lot of people upset that Kalani and all of them are getting passed up. I'm sorry, Kendall Gray's the biggest star in women's wrestling, in my opinion. At least on the women's roster. But it's so... I've been saying this since the call-ups, that the women's division in NXT is the strongest point of the... And it was very evident in this PLE. Because they haven't built a male star on the level of the 4 or 5 women stars that they had that showed out in this PLE. Right? The only one I would say didn't really show out in a superstar way. The only match that, like, the speed title didn't really show out. So we could take those away. That's fine. But Zarya, Tatum, which I think is getting called up. But Zarya, Lola, Tatum, Kendall showed out. Carried this card. There's not a single male superstar on the roster right now. You got Keanu Carver just being a bully to everyone, like the same old gimmick every same week, and it's kind of boring. It's not. You got Tristan Angels, who's not a star. Shiloh could be a star, but I'm not sold on him. Naraku is Tony D is not good as a champion, because what Tony D did best was the out-of-ring storytelling. He's not necessarily the greatest wrestler, right? But it was always the family and the who were they gonna potentially attack today and all of that, right? You don't have those stars in NXT on the men's division in the same way you have them in the female division. Even with, like, as much as I think she's well past her stay, Nikita Lyons now has some purpose. Carmen Petrovic feels important. Kalani. And so I need the men to step it up. Because we haven't really had a decent men's roster since Mello, Dragunov, Braun Breaker, right, Trick, since that era of NXT. And when they all left, there wasn't really a star to replace them. And they haven't really built one here either. Very transitional period of time. But this match with Kendall and Lola was such a good match. Especially when the pace started. Like, I like that they did a lot of the match stuff, because to show that they both are technical. They have technical backgrounds, with Kendall being an amateur wrestler and the MMA background of Lola. I liked that. I like that a lot. Ankle locks being done. The technical stuff was great. But once they started picking up the pace, and he started getting spinning back elbows and all of that, fantastic moments. What a match. What a match this was. I don't think it was the best. I still think Zaria and Tatum were better, just in my personal opinion, but close second. Overall, good show. Good showing. Not the greatest, but good showing from the roster. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to what's coming up. Excuse me. So we'll see what'll happen with the rest of NXT tomorrow night on Tuesday, live on the CW. So that brings me to Supergirl. And I was going to try to make this, and I'm still planning on trying to make this as spoiler-free as possible. The goal is to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, because I understand it just came out, not everyone watched it. But I'm going to go ahead and give a warning right here at the jump. I may give away some plot details. It's the only way I could talk about this movie. Right? Because I went in understanding the critics hated this. But I don't take critics' opinions too seriously. So my goal here is not to convince you it's a good movie. That's up for your own interpretation. I want to talk about how I felt about it as a casual movie goer. Someone who doesn't know the source material, but just wanted a good story. And I went in to watching this with it in the back of my mind, is this as bad as they said it was? And I think the critics and everyone who's watched it and has trashed it, I think they're missing the mark on this movie. I'm not going to say it's perfect. It's far from perfect. It's not the best movie I've ever seen. Not the best movie in this genre. And so I think there are definitely some flaws, but I don't think the flaws outweigh the positives. I would give this like a 7. Like a 7 to 7.2, like in my scale, right? I liked the movie. I genuinely was entertained. One of the critiques was like the script was bad. Are we really critiquing that? Like, was it basic? Sure. But sometimes basic is good. Now, I'm not the biggest fan. I'll be honest, like a lot of people. I'm not the biggest fan that the script writer for this was her first ever major, like, the only other thing she's done before this was short movies, like short films. And it kind of played out that way. Like, I'll genuinely accept that critique. Because a lot of the characters, like, this would have worked better as a 30-minute film in the way they played the characters. Because some of them weren't necessarily drawn out the way they probably could have been. But that's not necessarily that bad of a reason not to watch it. One of the other critiques was the music was kind of weird. I kind of agree, but I also think this was DC trying to test the where everyone's critiquing that it looks like Mad Max or Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that's what they were trying to tap into. That this was an intergalactic story. And so they tried to tap into like the Guardians theme with the music and all of that. But I also think they were trying to separate and express that Superman and Kara, Supergirl, are two very distinct characters. They're not the same. Right? I think everyone wanted, like, Supergirl to be the same as Superman. Where Superman is, like, Mr. Americana sees the good in everyone, but Supergirl is sort of a rationalist, and I respect that because that's how I am. That's my personality. There's a line that everyone's critiquing that I actually liked because it's something that I would probably say, where she was talking about Superman and how he sees the good in everyone, and she says, but I see the truth. And I love that perspective. Just genuinely, because that's kind of how I feel at times. I don't want to make this too long or too spoiler heavy. Just to be honest, so let me just get to my main thing, because what is really the conversation going on with it now is that it's a flop because it's gonna miss. It only made 38 mil domestically opening weekend, 68 worldwide, where it was projected to make 50 mil domestically and missed that mark. And even at the 50 mil mark, it would have that still would have been kind of low for the budget. And so while I understand that this is a business, I don't think, like, everyone's like, oh, this is the end of the DCU. They got to scrap it. James Gunn's going to get fired. I'm going to say slow your horses. I think he's perfectly fine. I think they got Clayface coming out in October, and then next July-ish we'll probably get Man of Tomorrow, the next Superman movie. That's going to be the big film, and then I think they adjust around that, and see if that flops low or if that doesn't do as projected. Then I think we got to have a talk. But for what this was, which was a character origin story, I think it did well. And I'm not going to give a lot of plot. I'm just going to leave it there, and I'm going to leave with this. Because the main talking point about why this failed is that people don't want a strong female lead. That's like the talk. People are tired of the boss lady. I can name 4 reasons why this didn't do as well at the box office. That doesn't include the reasoning of people don't want a strong female lead. I think that's lazy. There's a lot of people calling it misogynistic. I'm not going to use that. I just think it's a lazy critique. I think there's 4 reasons. First, it opened against Toy Story 5, which was going to be the obvious choice that parents would take their kids to go watch. While at the same time, Disclosure Day, I think, is it a Session? Was in with some horror movie. Jackass just debuted. There were a lot of movies that you could choose. And I feel like in the list of those movies, this probably wasn't high on a lot of people's priority list. Number 2, the marketing of the movie was a shot in the foot, an unnecessary self-inflicted wound, in that they promoted Kara as being a drunk person, and that was what they marketed her as, this sort of punk rock drunk, right? And I think that turned some people away. The marketing itself wasn't very good. But it also presented a character in the way that the actual movie, when you went to go watch the movie, Kara's is more developed. She spends maybe 20 minutes being a drunk until she recognizes her purpose, right? So I said that there has to be a why. Everyone's criticizing that they sort of divert it from the source material by having, and this is where one of the spoilers is going to come, by having Crypto get shot. Well, when that happened, and we find out it had poison on it that was going to kill him in 3 days, and the antidote's only on the villains carried around their neck. So this gives her why. And I said that in my head when it happened. I literally said, there's your why. There's your story device as to why she decides to go and help this unsuspecting 12-year-old girl go after the evil guy, right? And some said that, oh, well, the villain was awful, was a lazy villain. He wasn't really that bad. And I think that's the point. Again, I think a lot of these people don't recognize that a lot of the younger viewing audience doesn't want your standard good guy, bad guy, good versus evil story. We want more real, raw, nuanced stories, right? This villain was an asshole, bro. He's sex trafficking girls. He's killing people's families for no reason. He's kind of just a jerk. And that's real life, what people do. That's what real life villainy looks like. People critique that, like, they nerfed Kara's abilities at times, but I think that's kind of the point. This is where we're going to start getting into some of the plot points. I think that's kind of the point of what they were aiming for. Because what they were presenting was a 23-year-old girl who's a drunk, only cares kind of about herself. And she's naive. She kind of trusts the wrong people, and it gets her into trouble where she has to think quick to get out of these things. But then she also is sort of like, she cares for this little girl, Ruthie, the other main character here, where the story has a lot to do with revenge and you know, I thought it was just a wonderful story. I think the target audience wasn't 30-year-old men. It wasn't for me. I don't think it even was for 30-year-old women. I think it was for the younger audience, just realistically. But it also, it was such a good story of the pain Kara faced seeing her mom, the backstory of digging into seeing her mom and her dad leave, and her mom was like, just, you don't need to be perfect, you just need to be good. Or something along those lines, right? You just need to be good. And at the end of the day, Kara's kind of a broken mess. She's an alcoholic. She's young, naive, immature. She's not perfect. She has her flaws. And for some reason, people don't like when superheroes have flaws. But we have flaws because none of us are perfect. And it's through her flaws. Even in there was one scene where, like, she goes out and, like, that leads to the ending of the movie, final battle scene, where she's like, take me to the bad guys, and they take her there, and she only gets her powers with yellow suns, and the bad guy was knowing she would chase him because she's immature and all of that. She's on mission. She's trying to save her dog. That's something we all can relate to, doing whatever it takes to save our dog, right? The same thing that, like, Pluto, or not, I don't know why I call him Pluto, it's Crypto. Crypto was used in the Superman movie as this relatable character or device that we can relate to the humanity. The same thing here. We all relate to this idea of if our dog was dying and we could get the antidote, we would do whatever it took to do it, right? We would do whatever it takes. And so she gets to this point, like, she's chasing this dude. All she cares about is getting this antidote to save her dog. And she doesn't really think clear. She ends up on this planet that's stuck between a yellow and a green sun, so they get both. Now she gets powers with the yellow sun, but the green sun almost kills her. And so we're sitting at this point where she's about to die. And we see this, we keep seeing these flashbacks throughout the movie as to why she cares so much about this dog, and it's the only thing that sort of like connects her to her people. And because she She doesn't feel like the entire movie was, I'm not Clark Kent. I'm not Superman. I don't feel at home on Earth. Earth is not my people. I don't trust them there. And to see her come full circle at the end, that she's going to stay a while, and we're going to end up with, what is it, Man of Tomorrow in 2027? But we get such, I think, a lot of good storytelling devices that a lot of people are critiquing, that from my casual point of view, I thought it was a very good movie. But let's finish. So first, it opened against Toy Story. Second, the marketing was bad. The third reason I think it kind of failed is there are a lot of people who still listen to these paid critics, and they were allowed to be persuaded. I think this is the least, like, if I had to rank the four as to their effect, this would be last. I don't think a lot of people actually care about the critics. But there are still some who said, well, if the critics said it's bad, I'm not going to watch it. And they were persuaded. But I think, so first, I think Toy Story is the number one reason. Parents we're going to go take their kids to go watch Toy Story opening weekend. But the number two, if I were to rank these four, this would be number two. The viewing patterns of your, like, 15 to 35-ish, 40-ish crowd. So typically in the DCU, a movie gets released, and this is typical with a lot of movies now, where they have a streaming platform, where the studio has a streaming platform. You typically go to release in theaters, and about 70 to 77 days later, you go on streaming. So that's about 8 to 10 weeks. About 8 to 10 weeks after you go to theaters, you go to streaming. And the viewing pattern of a lot of people is, I'm just going to wait till it goes to HBO Max. The critics say it's not that good. I'm not going to spend the money to watch it. Going to the theater is expensive. So I'll just wait till it's on Max, or now Paramount, since Paramount's buying Warner Brothers. I don't know when that merger is going to be official, but I'll just wait 8 to 12 weeks for them to put it on Max, and I'll watch it there at the comfort of my house. Right? And so I think there's a lot of reasons. And I don't think because it didn't meet its, even if it doesn't meet its budget and make back the money, many will call that a flop because it didn't make money. The movie was still good. It's a 7.5 movie. It's not perfect. It's got its flaws. But I think it was designed to be that way. Because the character has flaws. But we see the goodness in her. She's still a good person. She's just dealing with trauma. She's dealing with pain that she's trying to mask. And what my favorite part of this whole thing was when she decided to use her powers and to be Supergirl. Because there was a point where Ruthie hands her the suit, and for most of the movie, she's not in the suit. But she gets handed it, and she's like, it's just a suit. It's just a stupid suit. It doesn't mean anything. But the yellow sun comes back. She gets her powers back. She puts the suit on. In the moment, like, this entire journey, she stopped thinking about herself when she had a purpose. And there's a larger message I think we could have there. We as human beings were designed to have purpose. And when you don't have a purpose, you start to go insane. You start to try to numb the feeling. You start to wonder why you're even here. When you have a purpose, you know why you're here. And as a Christian, I always like to spin this around. As a Christian, my purpose is to do everything I do is to glorify my Creator. Now, that's not the message of the movie, but that's why I can look at life and say, bro, sometimes it sucks, bro, but I have a purpose to keep on. I don't need to get drunk. I don't need to get high. I don't need to go out and numb the pain with sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Right? I have a purpose. And I kind of fail with that purpose sometimes. But I know I have it, and it's what allows me to keep going when life sucks. And so ultimately I think that, but like the message about revenge, where everyone's like, well, why wouldn't she just let the girl get, the revenge equals bad trope is, and that's not even the trope. The message of the movie is like, you could kill the bad guy, Ruthie. But first off, you've never killed anyone in your life. And once you do that, you're never going to take it back. It's going to eat you up the rest of your life. You're still going to feel that pain. But second, it's not like there's an innocence there that Kara's trying to protect. Because she still has goodness inside of her. And then everyone's like, well, if she went the entire movie telling Ruthie not to kill him, major spoiler alert here, just so you could kill the bad guy. Because yes, I get it. That's not part of the original source material, which is why I hate when people always bring up source material. Source material. Guys, that's inspiration, but that's not the full plot. They're not just copying the source material. It was an inspiration. But it's not what we're watching. I hate that argument. Oh, it doesn't go... It's not the true source material. Yeah, because it was an inspiration along with various other inspirations that he made into his own idea. But Kara wasn't wrong in killing this person. In killing the bad guy. He deserved death. What he did in the entire movie in causing all the destruction and murder and sex trafficking... Guilty, he deserves death. But Kara's point was, I'm not going to let you do it because you're still innocent. You're still innocent, and I'm not going to let you cross that line. Right? This movie was beautiful. Wasn't perfect, but I think it was meant to show flaws because the characters have flaws. Kara's a flawed person in the movie. But she overcomes them with goodness and purpose, and she realizes maybe Earth isn't that bad, and now I'm going to go and stay. Right? I think this was a beautiful film. I think the critiques are completely uncalled for. I think that you have some business to maybe consider. The next, the big film, I think it's called Man of Tomorrow. I don't know. That one's going to have to make some major money. Because as of right now, Superman barely made its budget back. Barely made its budget back. Probably not going to make it with this movie. Clayface is the next one that's coming out in October, and that's a low-budget movie. Probably not going to make a lot of money from that one. So you have to make some money with Man of Tomorrow. And so I get where people are coming from with the money issue. I don't think that did it flop? Sure. I think there are reasons, and I think we need to address those reasons. I also think there's a fifth reason I could add. The superhero genre of movies has kind of run its course. I mean, it's been like the number one thing for like 15 years now. It's sort of getting old. There's a lot of superhero fatigue, I believe. Honestly, I think if they took some time to not make superhero movies and then brought them back in like 3 or 4 years, maybe people would be more. I think people don't go to the theaters as much. I think there's a lot of reasons. So let's end this show with the question of the week. The state of Texas just passed a law that starting in the 2030 school year, there's going to be mandatory Bible reading. Now, I need to explain it's going to be educational, not religious, meaning in the same way that you read Greek mythology, You're going to read some Old Testament stories. They probably won't read it's probably just going to be like Veggie Tales type stuff, right? Here's the story of David and Goliath. Here's the story of Noah and the flood. Here's the story of Abraham. I don't think they'll really get into the New Testament, because the New Testament's where you really start to get into more like the philosophical theology parts, whereas a lot of the stories are in the Old Testament, the stories that you could read from a educational purpose. So the question is, do you think this is a good thing? I'm going to give my short answer. I'm conflicted, because I think this ruling can then be used to force other religious texts to be read. And I'm not for that. I also think there's a couple things. I'm not for this, because you're sending your children to communists who are teaching, who are going to definitely misrepresent the stories. I personally, I believe it's the parents' job to teach Christianity to their kids. Really, to educate. I'm a public school kid, and so I understand the reason why people go to public school, and I'm not anti-public school. I just think parents should have more say. I think we've treated public school as a way of, you have my kids, I don't want to deal with them, you educate them, you know better, you teach them. And that's where we've come out with these crazy people on the left, because they've been manipulated by the educational system. That's just my take. I don't want those people teaching theology or reading Bible stories to my kids, or to any kid, and reading it wrong or interpreting wrong or putting wrong messages in it. That's a parent's job. That's the church's job. Like, I'm not for this at all. The more that I think about it, not for this at all. I think it's a slippery slope to allowing other religions to force their way into the educational system, where at the same time, it's not public school's responsibility to teach your kids their religion. That's your church's job, and that's the parents' job to teach and educate their kids. Just my view. What say the Slap and Meat community? Would love to hear your answer in the Discord. Thank you all for listening. I'm We Too Deep. I will see you all on the next episode.
So hit that subscribe, come along for the ride, whether it's NXT or NFL time. Going in the ropes and fourth and deep, slapping meat community every Tuesday. Every Tuesday, every Tuesday.